Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey, everybody. I am so delighted to introduce today's guest, Deb Coviello. Deb is an advisor, author, podcast host, and founder of Illumination Partners, a consulting firm for CEOs navigating change. A trusted partner to C-suite leaders, Deb brings 30 plus years of experience in strategy in quality and operational excellence roles, combined with her 20 years in the flavors and fragrance industry to support her clients as they work together to identify, assess, and solve the issues that are preventing their business growth. Certified as Lean and Six Sigma Black Belt in process improvement, she has developed powerful programs devoted to helping CEOs identify emerging leaders, understanding people are your greatest tool in your toolbox. Deb is a board member of Women in Flavor and Fragrance Commerce, an avid curler with the Cincinnati Curling Club, a mother of three, and resides in Cincinnati, Ohio, with her husband, Dan, of 32 years. And she is the author of the book, The CEO's Compass, your guide to get back on track. And we're going to get to talk about all of that. Please join me in welcoming Deb Coviello. Hey, Deb.
Hey, Tammy, I am so excited for this conversation.
So, Deb, as you know, on Work from the Inside Out, we like to start with the early years, things that might or might not have been formative in terms of informing what you're doing today. But it's always interesting, I find, to hear about people's younger lives and how they just influence them in some way or another. So take us back to some of those early years and share a little bit about yourself then.
I think I was an extrovert from the day I was born. All I wanted to do was talk. And also I was very creative. I loved to read. I loved to write. I was always imagining things. So at a very early age, 5 years old, I'm picked to be the lead of the play. I was exceptionally good in school, but get this, the teachers would always write in the report cards, Deb is a very good student, but she tends to talk too much. Can you keep her quiet?
So, I remember in my early elementary school years, and I think I'm a little older than you, but 1960s, early 70s, I remember teachers constantly saying, be quiet, stand in the corner, and I remember that those times. I'm curious. It sounds like, so you listened to some of that, and yet it never really quite stopped you, did it?
So
now, let me ask you this. Were you in a public school? What kind of setting were you in? I'm curious where.
Public school.
Yeah. Where?
And so I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm a Jersey girl. Huh? And I would say it was a very good school system. My parents were very keen on making sure education was paramount. So I always supported me. And I was very bright, always getting top grades and also getting a little bored. So they would make sure that I was in the gifted and talented, as well as it got to the point where they actually had to put me in the next higher grade for certain subjects to just challenge me. And then fifth grade came along where my grades started sliding, something to do with I either didn't click with the teacher, but my grades were no longer where they had been. So instead, they decided to skip me to the sixth grade when I was in fifth.
Now, in sixth grade, was that a middle school, junior high?
That was our middle school. So sixth, seventh, and eighth, getting you ready for high school. So
that's a big shift then, to be moved out of fifth and then go up to a whole nother school.
It's still within the same building, but yes, okay. Now, again, the environment is different. You're switching classes. You've got a lot of classes, a lot of teachers. You have to learn new skills to stay heads down and get the grades. So I moved into high school, and the interesting thing was quiet and wasn't seen as a high performer. So I was put in all the regular classes going into the ninth grade. And that was the beginning of the end of being seen as less because I wasn't as expressive. I didn't stand out, heads down, and I was starting to excel again. I was starting to be intellectually challenged and getting good grades. So where I started out high school with no honors courses, you get to the senior year, top 10% of the class, and getting the grades, getting myself ready for a high performing college career. Mm-hmm. And then in comes the guidance counselor saying, just apply to the local colleges, just apply to the state school, just so you can get into college. And it was like, oh my, I love the science. I love technology. I wanted to get a good career so I could be financially independent. I didn't listen to the advice and found my way into Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where I started out as a biology major, but then went into biomedical engineering for very few reasons. And then I think those college years were the beginning of me starting to find my voice again. I remember the end of college, I got into a professional leadership program where you were identified as being potential leadership. And I remember that we had a retreat and all the people in the group had to identify those people that potentially could be the leader. And I got voted as the leader. And I don't know how they found it, but there was something about who I was or when I spoke that just resonated leadership. So I said, oh my God, there's something in there. When I speak, people see something in how I speak. So that's when my voice started coming out again.
That sounds like that was also just a great springboard for you.
It made me believe or wonder, what was it that my peers saw something in me that they voted me as the leader for this retreat? And I don't recall, I never got feedback on that, but again, went into my career, started taking Toastmasters because I knew I wanted to project, to speak, to present information.
So I'm curious, as a woman with an engineering degree, mm-hmm. And entering the workforce, going into corporate, were you on a bit of an island as a female engineer, or no?
I don't see it as an island. Statistically, there are fewer women in the engineering curriculum, for which then by the odds and statistics, there are less of us. But the ones that are there, and I remember distinctly when I went into my first job at a school, it was the Manufacturing Management Development Program. There were equal numbers of women and men.
Oh, okay. All right.
So treat it as an equal, but it's just statistically, there are less of us based on that pursuit. So, but always, there was at least another female in the room as I moved up to manager and director, often an HR person, maybe a supply chain person. Island, not necessarily based on engineering and female.
Yeah.
Island, not having good mentorship or coaching from the boss. The boss will give you direction, tell you what to do. You get your performance review, not so much guidance. So that onto itself was the island I felt through my career.
Mm. Yeah.
I was given some training. I was identified as a high performer in certain situations. So I was set up for success. But when it came to saying who was going to mentor me, who was going to provide me some direction and advice, stop doing that. You might want to consider that. I didn't have that, or I didn't know to look for it.
Right. I think that's the other thing about mentoring in this day and age is it's more, I think it's more widespread now.
Yeah.
And I think more people know, not everyone, I think it's still new enough, but more people know to ask for that or to seek it. And it doesn't have to be within your company, but at the time, you were in, it sounds like a number of different corporate cultures, I'm sure. And the culture of leadership, the culture of helping people grow was not the first priority, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think what it was more of a check the box compliance activity. Yes, you had to provide people different skills and such based on the business needs. I also saw a lot of favoritism in terms of the high performers got all the training, mentoring, professional coaches. And then you had the ones that may have been seen as steady eddies or just heads down. They get the average performance reviews. Not a lot was afforded them. I think they went through the motions, but conversations didn't always start with, what do you need to be successful? Versus, How's that report coming along? How's that procedure coming along? Did you hire that person? It was very tactical, a little bit strategic, and not a lot on personal development. And so, so that's one of the things I now am trying to change the priorities in when we have conversations with our employees that are in our care.
Right, right. So you went through several transitions. It sounds like many times your transitions were motivated by wanting to learn something new, wanting a new environment, feeling that it was time to grow elsewhere, so to speak.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it always is. I mean, even the company I was at, IFF, loved IFF. It was a great company. I was there for 9 years, but they actually told me there wasn't a career ladder for which I could continue to move up in the quality arena. I tried to seek opportunities within the corporate quality function that might give me some more breadth and influence. And when those weren't happening, the world showed up for me and I got a call from the competition and they offered me actually, I would say a lesser role, but in a larger company because my aspiration was to be a regional head of quality, having greater impact rather than being a single contributor in a single site. That opened the door, and that's what happened. I became a regional head, one of operational excellence. That was my first corporate level job, having regional responsibility, and then identified as the successor to move into the head of quality for the same region. So I took a well planned out decision. It was the best decision. And it finally got me to a place where I said, okay, now I'm valued and I'm growing and having a bigger impact.
I like that. I like hearing those kinds of stories, though, from people, because I think too often people think that the career trajectory has to be that it only can go in one direction. It has to go up, 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 and what I'm hearing is this was a step up for you because it was going to be expansive for you, but maybe on paper, it looked like you were taking a lateral move or a sidestep in some way because of the nature of the job title or whatever, wherever it sat within the org chart. But you had the insight to know this was going to be expansive for you. You were able to look beyond sort of the window dressing and see what that opportunity would be.
Exactly. I'd taken a step down to be an individual contributor, but there were many opportunities to jump in and help in other locations and be seen. And when there was an opening, and that's a whole nother story, I almost left the company, but then ultimately was then offered the regional position. I walked into chaos. The organization was crumbling, but I was up for it because that gave me my next challenge and I don't know if I can do this, but this is what I signed up for. And, you grow into those opportunities and you make it what you can. I took the organization from not really generating any revenue to about $5 million a year in cost savings for the region. The company depends on that. So I said, okay, I did that one. And then worked very closely with a person I really care about. They were the head of quality for the same region. We did a lot of collaboration together. He saw my value. And while I didn't think I was ready when they left the company, his boss said, "Do you want the job?" And I remember the moment and I said, yes. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I mean, that was in the back of my head, but I said yes. And it was the absolute best decision ever. It came with challenges, but I had the opportunity to grow and speak and communicate and be creative. And then I was squashed again. And I'll tell you about that story, but it was absolute validation that creative person as a child that wanted to express and try new things and just do things a little bit differently came forth in full force in that last role.
Well, I wanted to, and we will get to that. I wanted to ask you about something out of your book and have you speak to this. You have a title of one section that says "Clarity Amid Chaos." That just clarity amidst chaos, and I thought that is provocative. Can you say a little more about clarity amidst chaos, because you just mentioned walking into chaos initially. And I thought that had something to do with this notion of clarity amidst chaos from your book.
So there's a little side story about that excerpt from the book. When I had the editors going through that, they kept changing it to clarity amid chaos. And I just said, that's not the way I speak. There's different ways in that phrase, amid or amidst. And I said, when I say that, I say amidst. Don't change my words. This book has to be my voice. What I have found is that while I am an expressive person with the responsibility of communicating, also comes a huge capability in learning how to listen. Mm-hmm. And I remember through my technical training as a continuous improvement quality professional, you sometimes have to investigate issues, get to root cause to prevent these from happening again, because they cost money, you lose customers. I got very good at walking into situations that were chaotic, people coming together saying, this happened, that happened, this is how we're going to solve the thing. And it was chaotic, and nobody could even articulate what the problem was, but people will hurry, scurry, and go off and fix things when they don't have a clearly defined problem statement. And I just had this talent to be able to listen and see what truly was the problem and be able to come forth, clarity amidst the chaos, to say, I think this is what the problem is and what we really should be going after. And it was very calming and level setting for the people that I was with, for which then they said, yes, that's the direction we should be going. That's the problem we should be solving, and moving a group forward.
Yeah.
This just became a superpower of mine, to be able to step back and look at a situation, chaos, crisis, a new company, a client, to be able to see not what they're telling me is in front of me. That's the tip of the iceberg. Right. Being able to see what's underneath. And even today, you and I having a conversation, interviewing people, I will say, do you realize that you are actually this in terms of your value? And people will be jolted. I almost disarm them because I said, I never thought about it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's the clarity amidst chaos that I bring to every situation that I encounter.
I love that. And I would imagine that is enormously helpful to your clients, because, and I think it makes sense. Look, when people are in the middle of something and they are so close to it, it's so easy to get caught up in the chaos. If you can come in with even, a half an inch of distance from it, and obviously with your training and your skill set, ability to unpack things and look at things in a certain way, you can bring that voice of clarity to it. At least some people can. Other people get swept right up into it, right? But it sounds like you were able to kind of come in and say, wait a minute, let's take a look under the hood, see what's going on with the engine, and let's see, because there's probably a way either through this or around this. But I love that clarity amidst chaos. That just really, that like jumped off the page at me.
Thank you for reading that. As authors, we pour our heart and soul and insights and put everything into that first book, because we just want the world to know, and we want to give solutions so that they can solve their own problems, but also share a little glimpse of who we are. And for the right person, we might be that guide to get them back on track.
Right. And your book is, what I love about your book too, is that there's tons of stories in it of all kinds of scenarios, all kinds of people, so that it's, someone reading it is going to find something relatable to them that they can learn from. It's not just, you're not just sort of saying, here's the world according to Deb, everyone should do it my way. It's more like, here's some great scenarios and stories of people who've been there and who have done that. And here's what they learned along the way. And here's some, and then you've created these frameworks to give people the compass, to give people a way of looking at their own situations and unpacking them and taking a good look at it, right?
It's better, you get a better result for whoever is reading the book, for them to glean the insights and internalize it and discover one, what makes them tick as a leader, and do they need to change a little bit? And then through discovery, pick and choose the compass points that will get them back on track. Being prescriptive and laying out a 5-step approach can work for some if they've got nothing and just need to say, copy, paste. That works. But I often work with leaders or individuals who've been already very successful, have set up systems and frameworks, have proven themselves. But sometimes every leader has a situation where I don't know what to do. I've put all my tools in place and the situation is different and I'm not sure now what to do. And it's usually those transformations, changes, things like that. And I just give them a little bit of space and some insight and some stories to think about. You can figure this out, but you might want to go here to the right, might want to go here to the left and build a little bit more about people development or how to help people and their competencies or measure performance in a completely different way because we're actually doing it wrong. And you might find that you get better results in the long run.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can listen to what they're struggling with and see where there might be a gap or a blind spot, right? I think that's the beauty of what we do is we're able to see things that other people can't see because they are too close to it. And yet you also have, decades of experience to reflect on. But I think it's got to be exciting to now be where you are now and working with people in a variety of industries and fields and just see what they're dealing with today, because things are changing so rapidly. I mean, especially the last few years, the workplace, the way companies have to function has changed so much that I would think that, that there's lots of leaders really looking for another voice or another perspective on how to go about addressing things that maybe they used to address a certain way, but some of those things aren't going to work anymore.
Yeah. And thank you for all of that and teeing that up. Yes, I love now working on my own terms with, mind you, I have to find the work. I have to find the clients themselves. But when I find these clients, you just want to give them a hug. One, because they have the right culture. They know they need some external eyes, even in a fractional capacity, just for a moment in time to help them get over the hump to achieve the result they want. But what I find interesting, there's so many things that I find now that I'm on the outside and trying to connect with so many people. One common thread I find is that for everybody I encounter, there are some leaders that while they know that they need an external set of eyes to fix their situation, they hesitate too long to pull the trigger and actually have the courage to ask for help. That's one thing I'm seeing. So when they do, it's usually now they're in crisis, not just chaos and they're putting out fires. No, they're in crisis now. And they're potentially losing a customer. It's a little too late. So I am so appreciate the platform to be able to say, just don't wait too long just to start having a conversation. I can impart a little bit of knowledge right now to get you on your way, but just don't wait too long. You focus on your core competency, but sometimes a coach, sometimes an expert in health and safety, whatever. Think about bolting on that extra talent to what you already do well and bring them in just for a short amount of time so you can see clearly what might be missing.
Now, do you use the compass with everyone? Do you start out with that to help them to identify some of those directions? Or is that something that you only use in certain circumstances?
A beautiful question. And I actually did this for a client once. I actually used the compass and a few other lenses. So maybe it's a periscope, a telescope, a binoculars. There are a few lenses.
Or a kaleidoscope.
Oh, no. Yeah, sometimes it's very colorful. I do look through different lenses, but the CEO's compass often starts with just mindset. It's about people development. Are we cultivating their culture, their intellectual property? They're a little bit different than just putting a procedure in place, training the people and things like that. It's a little bit different. I will always look first at the talent of the people and the culture. Do I have at least somewhat of a favorable foundation and make course corrections there? But there are other lenses. I am a quality professional. I will look for standards and processes and things to assure repeatability of what we're doing, because as people leave the company, you want to make sure you preserve those standards, that intellectual property. So there's a quality lens. Then, can I make it efficiently, save money, make money. I will go through a lean lens as well.
Yes.
And I'll bring all of this to the table. But the leader might say, I just want you to work on the leadership development, or I need to get this particular requirement in place. I'll do that. But I say, you might want to look over here. You
Sure.
might want to think about these people are going to retire real soon. We don't have a succession planning program.
Yeah, right.
You might want to start looking at that. So I come in with the compass and a few other tools to give them the best information.
I really can appreciate kind of your holistic view of this and how you look at an organization and how the leader is really looking at it and helping them to see things through some new lenses too. That's got to be incredibly refreshing for them. So tell us about what things you're up to today. I know that your book is out. It's been out for a while, and we want to encourage people to get it. And your podcast. Tell us about your podcast.
It was one person that interviewed me, and it was just amazing. It was a 10-minute interview. But when he asked me what I did, and I shared, well, I'm like the drop-in CEO. I drop into businesses and blah, blah, blah. And after the interview was done, he said, drop-in CEO. He said, that's brilliant. I said, where did that come from? I said, I don't know. It just came out of my mouth. And it was one of those things, it was linked to a memory of when I was mid-career in a failing company, and the private equity company dropped in a CEO that rolled up their sleeves and did what we needed to get back on track and also elevated my capability. That stuck with me. And I said, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
So the drop-in CEO, wanting a platform for my voice and be able to create content and meet amazing people and inspire people.
Absolutely.
Bring insights and inspiration.
Right.
That's the podcast 240 episodes later.
Whoa, 240.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's terrific. And I'm still edging up towards 200 and thought I was, whew, that's great. Well, that's wonderful. So if people want to learn more about your work and your book and your podcast, where's the best place for them to find all of that?
Well, Tammy, thank you so much for this. The best way to get a hold of me is dropinceo.com, my website, dropinceo.com. You will find my podcast. You will find my book, my blog, and my products and offers. That's the best way. The second best play, I play a lot on LinkedIn, Deborah A. Coviello, or the Drop-In CEO. I would love an opportunity to have a conversation and get to know you. You never know where it might go.
All of that in the show notes too. So
thank you.
Final question for you before we wrap up is, you've been through a number of transitions yourself. If somebody came to you and said, I'd love to just get from your experience one key piece of advice on my next move or making a transition, what's a good general piece of advice for somebody who is getting ready to make a move or consider what's next for them?
And thank you for that.
Sure.
Get rid of the "nt" in your vocabulary. Get rid of the N''T. Banish it from your vocabulary. So many people say, I can't, I've not, I've never done that before. And as soon as you get rid of the N''T and said, I've been in this place before. I'm a quick learner. I think I can. Get rid of the N''T because when you change your words, you project a different persona. The world will see you as somebody that can versus cannot.
Oh, actually, I just thought of one more thing we didn't touch on. You do curling. I want to just mention your curling because you told me before we turned on record that you won a silver medal in your curling competition. And I would love for people to hear a little bit about that because I've never met a curler before.
Well, thank you. And curling is a sport that takes 10 minutes to learn and a lifetime to perfect. 15 years ago, my boss at the time, who was a curler, says, do you want to try? I said, oh my. I said, ow, when I would fall. But I love the sport. I love the sportsmanship in the community. Fast forward a number of years later, in 2017 at Notre Dame University at Arena Curling Nationals, we lost by 1 point, and I and the team came away with a silver medal. It was a beautiful time when 4 women who love the sport were firing on all pistons. And when we made it to the semifinals, I remember my husband saying, "You guys can make it to the end." I said, "What are you saying?" He says, "You guys can do it." And we did. A silver medal is a winning medal.
Absolutely. It's a winning medal. Congratulations. And thank you for sharing that. And now I will say, Deb, thanks for being here today.
It was a pleasure, Tammy. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Deb Coviello. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her background in professional transitions. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoolerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 191. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available in print and ebook editions through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, my website, independent bookstores, or through your local library. If you were inspired by this episode with Deb, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And please do subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your written review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at tammygoolerloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcasts button and follow the instructions provided there. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. I'd love to hear how it's going for you.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.